Back in 2000, England were in the midst of a thrilling test against the West Indies at Lord's, a game that saw that rarest of things, all 4 innings on a single day. So with listeners glued to the action from cars, houses and gardens across the country, we were joined by an icon of British comedy, Dame Penelope Keith. Star as Margot in The Good Life, Audrey into The Manor Born, Keith is a multi-BAFTA winner and became a Dame in 2014 for her services both to acting and charity. So here from July 2000 is Dame Penelope Keith.
Was that your first really big break?
Yes, I suppose so.
What were you doing before that?
I'd done a series before then called Kate, which I did up in Yorkshire, in Leeds. In actual fact, I remembered last night thinking about coming today, that was the very first test match I saw, I think, which was early 70s, it must have been. No, probably the second one. And it was again West Indies. And I went up and there was an actor in it called Brian Badco, and we started talking about cricket. A lot of actors like cricket.
Yes,
it's very interesting.
Apparently so. Yes.
Oh, yes. And isn't Peter O'Toole, a great fan?
I think he's been on. Yes, he's been on here as well.
Yes, hasn't he? I mean, a lot of actors like cricket. Anyhow, I started talking to him, and he said, look, if we get there in time, let's go and see The Last Hour at Headingley. So we tore along from the station to Headingley, and it was a beautiful day. And I remember we went up, and there were people starting to meander out. And we went up to the gate and said, can we come in? And I forget whether it was a tenner or something. He said, you don't want to come in, there's only an hour left, it's been a very boring day. And I said, no, please. He said, oh no, I can't take that off you. I tell you what, go in as lads. So Brian and I paid a £5 each to go in, and that was the day at Headingley when I think something like 4 or 5 West Indies wickets fell in the last hour. Oh, Bill, you're going to search.
Bill will look it up. He will do. It keeps him busy.
I think Garfield. I think it was Sobers who was captain. It must have been early 70s. I think it was.
Sobers was captain of 66.
Oh, Penelope, you're showing your age.
Yes, I am terribly. You're right.
It can't have been 66, Bill.
I don't think it was 66, actually. Anyhow. But that, I was doing a series called Kate with a marvellous actress called Phyllis Calvert. And that was on Yorkshire television. And I did, I think, something like 13 of those a year. It was a time when they used to be hour-long series. So I had 6 months a year doing it. And that was when I first would walk down the street and people would go, haven't I seen you on the telly? Which is the sort of first step. And then Good Life came along. And I suppose after episode 3, they'd say, oh, hello, isn't it Margot? Bill's approaching me. 69. That would be it.
And the wickets you would have seen?
And the wickets would I have seen...
Which day was it? I wonder, was it this one here?
I have no idea. But there were quite a few.
England won by 30 runs.
Yeah, quite a few in the last hour, I remember. Gosh, I did get it right then.
You did, well done. It wasn't 66, that was good news.
Yes, but so then Good Life happened, and it happens very gradually. And what's interesting about television, especially television comedy, is that I always say in the theatre, people will say they've seen you in the theatre. I keep posters on my wall to remind me where I've spent half my life now, of course, because otherwise it's just gone. All you've got is a programme. So people can see a performance and remember it, goodly or badly. Films always seem to me to date. And television drama can date, but somehow good comedy stands the test of time.
Well, that programme has never dated.
It is strange, isn't it? I mean, there are various ones, aren't there? Like Dad's Army, of course, is the real classic. And I get letters now from children, who weren't born. Oh, I had one recently who said, because my mum always told me that she was allowed to stay up and watch you. And that's when you realise...
No, crushing.
It's a goodie. But it does seem to stand the test of time, and people still find it amusing. And the only thing I think that really dates it is, of course, Margot's clothes.
Yes, which were pretty horrendous, weren't they?
They were. I used to spend more time... No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I used to spend more time shopping than rehearsing, really, with that thing, because they always have a clothes budget, and I always used to say, because Felicity was playing the self-sufficient lady who didn't have the money for clothes, all the clothes budget went on me. So,
How did they find you for that? It was such an extraordinary character. Did you sort of grow into it, and did you become this extraordinarily snooty character?
It was most peculiar, because what happened was I was doing plays in the theatre called The Norman Conquest by Alan Ayckbourn with Felicity Kendall. And Richard had done a lot of Ayckbourn plays, and he'd been sent, apparently, the script of The Good Life. And they couldn't decide how to cast it. And he'd been to see The Norman Conquests. And he said to John Howard Davis, who was directing it, I think we've got a job lot here. Both characters I can cast. So we were both cast at the same time. So that was a wonderful help in as much as Felicity and I knew each other very well. Richard is such a wonderful, welcoming chap. And Paul was huge fun. And it was just a magical
Perfect
casting,
mix.
I think.
Yeah. It looks so much fun to do. I mean, obviously the finished result is so funny. But is it actually good fun doing it at the time? I mean,
Yes.
is it important you'll get on like that?
Yes.
Particularly in the
Oh,
comedy,
yes.
I mean.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You cannot disguise dislike of fellow actors.
No.
You know, you really can't.
You can't get
No. You must enjoy it. I don't mean enjoy it so that you're all just having a good time and to help with the audience, but you must have the sort of fun that we had.
Yes. Did people laugh at you at school? I mean, have you always been a funny person, if you like?
Yes,
Have you
I
always
think
been...
I was. I was incredibly tall and terribly plain. And I think I realised early on that I'd have to do something to get myself invited to places. So I think I probably was, yes. Although I didn't really do much comedy in my career. My career wasn't very long by that time until I did Good Life and Norman Conquest. I'd done a lot of odd things on television, sort of in Dixon at Dock Green, Emergency Ward 10 and things like that.
Serious sort of stuff.
Oh, it's very serious sort of stuff, yes.
And so how do you then sort of channel off? How do you then think to
You
yourself,
don't.
well, it
You don't.
happens?
You don't really. I mean, playing comedy, acting in comedy is exactly the same as acting in anything, only you have to be more truthful, because people totally have to believe that you are who you say you are. You can actually, I mean, so many actors have said it. I think Sir Michael Redgrave was the last great actor to say it. He said, you can fool the town with tragedy, but comedy will find you out, my son.
Yes.
You know, because you have to be so truthful about it. People must totally believe. There mustn't be any sense of insecurity when you're playing comedy. They think, are you going to remember your lines? Are you really who you are? Whatever.
Yes.
People have to be very secure to laugh.
When you're playing something like Margot, does that sort of take over in a way? And
No.
Not at all. You can be Penelope for
No, yeah.
all night, have
I mean,
breakfast, and then go and be Margot for.
Acting is a strange craft, in as much as the losing yourself in okay, I've played very sad people and cried in rehearsal and all that, and done a bit of that. But you can't do that when you're actually performing in front of an audience, because you have a responsibility to tell the story to them and be aware of how they're feeling. Same on the television as on the stage. So when I was playing Margot, I was not only having to remember the lines that I'd only had in my head for a week, because we had a week turnaround. I had to think, oh crikey, but then the next one's a quick change, because I've got to get into that awful frock with yet more hair. So there wasn't a question of ever losing oneself. A bit of it was, but not all of it. There was a bit stuck on. The 70s were time for sticking things on, not only eyelashes, but hair and everything. So there's all those other things to do. So you don't become, I mean, quite occasionally, because it was before I was married, when I took my car to the garage, I wish I was Margot, because I'd love to have been able to kind of give someone a piece of my mind.
Yes. But people expect you to be, though, in a way. Oh, God, it's Margot turning up. No.
I don't think so. I think now that audiences are so sophisticated.
Yes.
I think gone are the times. I know when I did Emergency Ward 10, there was an actor in it who'd stopped when there was a crash because everyone else had stopped, and someone rushed up to him and said, Doctor, there's someone hurt. You know, I don't think that would ever happen anymore, because people have become so much more sophisticated.
But you do totally lose your privacy, don't you, if you're on television all the time? And the wonderful thing about this job is that no one knows what we look like.
I know what you look like.
But it must be, but if you're on the screens,
yes,
playing a popular part like that.
Yes, so therefore you guard your privacy very, very jealously.
What do you do? Shut yourself away and...
I garden. I mean, what do I do? I live in the country for a start, and the village where I live, everyone knows that I'm Mrs. Dempson, and, you know, that's it. And I've been around an awful long time now.
Yes.
You're saying yes very seriously.
I was going to say that I was also one of those people who
you was allowed to stay up. Yes.
And I think that's only your second series. But never mind.
Oh, thanks, Agus.
Sorry, no. Great thing is, in the little stuff that Shilpa did find me, and it wasn't simply your marmalade recipe. that I read out of. I should define a bit more. But gardening is a pleasure of yours.
It's a passion.
Yes. Well, surprised me about, again, going back to dear old Margot, who just couldn't get her hands dirty.
No.
Could she? It's a lovely paradox in a way.
You say, did I become Margot? In actual fact, what happened, I just moved into a house in Putney when we started that, and I had a garden, and I used to take seedlings in to Richard and Felicity and Paul, and had to explain which end went in first, you know.
No.
So
I thought of Margot doing that.
So that was, yes. Yeah. No, I'm not. That's gardening is my passion.
Is
yes.
it? And I mean, you've obviously got a nice garden that you.
I've got a large garden, and I'm just creating another one now, which is terribly exciting.
Oh,
yeah.
And what sort of gardening in particular? Any?
Well, no, I say everything. I'm one of those jack of all trades, really. I don't have I don't grow orchids or leeks or anything specific. I do love trees. I believe terribly strongly in trees and planting trees, and I plant as many as I possibly can. I've just planted a walk of 8 magnolias, Magnolia grandiflora, which is marvellous. We do have deer, of course, where we are, and so one has to do all the protecting against them nibbling the bark. But I love trees.
Well, Margot or Audrey, of course, would have scores of people running around to do all the mowing for her and all the weeding and so on.
No, I do that.
You're totally hands-on.
Yes. Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, I did do a gardening programme, I guess, some time back. I forget how long ago it was. It must be about 10 years ago. And one of the things I was terribly keen on was the fact that before gardening took off, people just gardened. And I was terribly keen that I would be seen as a real gardener. I mean, not a professional gardener, but a real gardener. So we did actually have a garden of an old people's home somewhere in Kingston, which I did used to garden in. And do a bit in there. And then I went round all over the country to various gardens, which was totally fascinating.
Yes. And you wanted to potters round with the headset. Do you listen to the cricket as you potter
Yes, I do.
around?
Yes, I do. I've just been given one of those wonderful little small wirelesses which have earphones in that I put in the pocket of my gardening apron, and it means, whereas before I carried the portable around with me and I always forgot it, I can now use it all the time, so I can go from the greenhouse to the water garden or whatever and wander around, and it's heaven. Yeah. It's changed my life. It's lovely.
Why do you like the radio side of cricket necessarily, or do you watch? I mean, are you a watcher inside? Do you watch the television or?
No, because there's not enough time to sit and watch television during the day, really. I'd love to, but I don't. And I do like. I mean, the classic is. I mean, the best is, isn't it? Having the radio on and then go rushing inside to see when the wicket's fallen. Yeah. No, but I do actually like it. You all do it so beautifully. I mean, it's marvelous. It's become such an institution now because it's not only informative, it's entertaining as well. I think you do it brilliantly.
It was great that you were able to recognise Blowers straight away when he walked in, which didn't surprise me at all. But I mean, is he what you expected?
He's lovely.
He's got his best jacket on for you today.
Well, I think it's a lovely jacket, but he's got a hole in the pocket, you know. He's just lost his fountain pen. Oh, no, you've retrieved it. Bravo. Isn't it lovely that he writes with a fountain pen? I knew you would.
Well, exactly. Little things like that.
Yes, little things like that, you see.
Who's your favourite?
I used to love watching Gower bat.
Did you?
Yes,
Why?
I really did. It was... The great thing in my business, the people that I find most rewarding and exciting to watch are the people who make it look easy. I think I was lucky enough to work with Eric Morecambe, and everyone used to think that he used to fool around. Every single thing was rehearsed. It was just breathtaking.
Was it?
Yeah, wonderful. And Gower did used to make it, he just went out there and it seemed to happen. I know occasionally it didn't, but when he just seemed to bat because that was the thing to do. It was a great flair and insouciance. I love that word.
He didn't net terribly hard, David. If Eric Morecambe was precise and concise, and no. David rarely. I mean, he was my captain, of course, at Leicestershire for a number of years.
Yeah.
He was a reluctant practicer.
Yes, but I loved watching him. I used to love watching John Snow bowl, and I loved watching Derek Underwood. It was interesting watching the guys yesterday, who were all introduced, the 8s.
Oh, yes.
I know the 2 weren't here, there was 10, the greats. And seeing Underwood, and he was exactly the same, wasn't he? It's lovely when time stands still like that.
Yes, he hasn't changed physically
at all. And he was wonderful to watch. There was another person who made it look rather easy.
You were telling a story about him, actually, weren't you, earlier on?
Yes, I was. I was doing a benefit or something down at Arundel. I went round with a blanket, I remember. And I didn't, in my business, it's not good news when they throw money at you, but everyone. I went round, I think, with Willis and Colin Cowdrey, and I forget who else. And we were rather pleased they threw money at us. But I remember, I forget which team were visiting, but they'd just beaten, England had just beaten them soundly. And of course the press had said, yes, well, of course it's not the best team that X country is sent over, and dum, and Underwood said rather quietly, yes, but no one's actually said that we were rather good. And I think it's a very English disease, isn't it?
It is. And have you found that critically yourself with theatre performances and things? I mean, do you take criticism?
I don't. I really don't read it now.
Really?
I really don't. Well, if you're in the theatre, it's terribly difficult. If someone said you're awful. I remember once at Chichester, I was playing in the apple cart, and I was playing someone called Orinthia, who was supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world, the king's mistress. And one of the notices said, Penelope Keith plays Orinthia as though she's lost the last race at Goodwood. And as I said afterwards, I don't know whether he meant I'd been riding it or backing it. But it was very difficult the following night to go on thinking, oh heavens, how do I go on playing this woman? It is very, very crushing, certainly, in the theatre. At least television, it's gone.
Yes. Do you think we're worse at it?
I think we like to. I think we've very much got the "we made you, we break you" attitude. Yes. We don't really like success.
No.
Do we really?
I think we like people who are successful, don't we? In a way, until they get to a certain.
Until they get to a
do
when we
people
think
knock you more when you're really in the
yes,
limelight?
Yes, certainly.
Why? For being sort of the picture that you portrayed, rather than for being.
I don't know. I just think it's a very British disease.
Yeah, that's sad. Have you worked overseas? Have you been away? And
just a bit. Last year I was lucky enough to go to Chicago. I did a Noel Coward play, just in a sort of concert performance, and I went and played in Chicago at the Chicago Opera House, which was wonderful, and that was great fun. And the Americans love successful people. Mark you, on the other hand, I'm not saying that is better than over here, because once you're a failure, they don't want to know you at all. Happily, I've not been a failure there. But so I've worked there, and I've worked in Australia a bit, and that was huge fun.
And how do they take you? I mean,
they think I'm very English.
Absolutely.
They think I'm very English. I remember walking down Fifth Avenue one day, and someone came up to me and said, "Gee, aren't you the BBC actress?" And I said, "Yes, yes."
You can still live off dear old Margot.
Yes.
Do you think when you went on to the Manor Born and you played dear old Audrey there, that you could be going typecast as this character?
No, because
clearly you're not a Margot and you're not an Audrey, but they sort of followed quite.
Well, they followed on closely together, but the reason I was lucky enough to get Audrey is, in my mind, she was totally different from Margot, you see. Because, I mean, the main difference was that Margot had no sense of humour, and Audrey had it in spades. And I think I divide people up to them that has and them that hasn't, so that, for me, was very different. And what is interesting is that in America, where they have the PBS systems, and they show a lot of English comedy now, they didn't used to, but they do now, I get letters from people who see Maybe That, and now Next of Kin, and I did another series called Sweet 16, and other ones I did from Thames, and they say, it's great because you're always different.
Yes. All those still sort of.
Well, because I look and I sound as I do, really. But Margot and Audrey were very different kettles of fish, I think, in my mind, anyhow. I was just so lucky to get two great parts within a very short space of time, really.
One thing I always wanted to know, we had Clive Mantle on, asked where The Vicar of Dibley was filmed, of course, that beautiful village. Where was The Good Life? Where was this poor fellow's garden?
It was in Northwood. It wasn't in Surbiton. It upset people greatly that it wasn't actually in Surbiton. It was in Northwood, and the great problem for the BBC was to find not only a house with a garden but people didn't mind it being dug up and goats doing everything. But they had to find a house next door that could be Margot and Jerry's, and this was the great problem. And they found it in Northwood.
Good Lord. And what happens now? I mean, people are living there quite happily.
I think they have the best garden in outer London because they had goat manure, chicken manure, pigs, and it was dug up annually for 4 years, you see.
Yes, of course.
And repeated and put together again.
Now, your husband is here, and he's obviously a big cricket fan too. He's been chatting away with Graham Fowler. He comes from up north.
He comes from up north. He comes from Lancashire. He's not so much a great cricket fan. Actually, he's a Formula One fan.
Oh, right.
When I say to him, he used to play cricket naturally as a Lancastrian. What did you do? Bat or ball? I did everything. So, It's quite a Lancastrian trait.
Yeah. He's been chatting with Graham Fowler about Accrington
and Rawtenstall.
They all sound rather alike, don't they?
They do, and they all look like that. Yes. Yes. Oh, you mean the actual sound?
Yes.
Yes. It's absolutely fascinating because there's a place called the Rossendale Valley, and it's not an urban Lancashire, but it's the rural Lancashire. It's the urban Lancashire of Manchester and Liverpool are harder, but the rural burr of East Lancs is very similar. It's lovely. It's those funny rolling R's.
Yes, it is. Well, there's David Lloyd, of course, to meet later on.
Yes.
Have you met David Lloyd? No. Well, he'll be down in the another Accrington special. So that's great. Penelope Keith, it's lovely having you here.
Thanks you.
so much.
It.
Yeah, we've tried. I think Peter's been trying for a very long time to have you on, haven't we? But, agents and goodness knows what else sort of get in their way, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I'm so glad that you've come and sharing your cricketing memories with us, and of course the good life. So thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Angus.